Aloha, everyone. This is Jason Schwartz at Maui Neutral Zone. I have a very special guest today. I have Dr. and Lieutenant Governor Josh Green with us. Welcome to our show today.
Thanks. I love being here.
Well, this is May 5th of 2020. And when I first talked about having you on the show, we were going to be talking about housing and the need for housing, housing first. And we were going to talk about other alternative health things and things like that. And we may talk about that, but I know we're right in the middle of this COVID-19 virus, and you are not only Lieutenant Governor, but I want to say Health Commander-in-Chief here. And I'd like to get a current look at what you think is going on and what you can tell our viewers, because I'm going to put this to our Maui Daily show here later.
Sure. Well, thank you again. This certainly wasn't what we expected to have a pandemic in the middle of this 4-year adventure as Lieutenant Governor, but I feel pleased that I can add a little extra oomph to the response. Where we are right now is, and you can see over my back shoulder, people might be interested. This is our whiteboard. I brought it along. We have 625 cases now to date confirmed. There are certainly more, positive cases of COVID-19 in our state, but the curve is very flat, as you can tell. It has significantly dropped off, and so the viral load in the state continues to drop every day, which is to say more people are recovering. Now 551 out of 625 people have recovered, which is 88.2%, and that's a very good thing. Now, of course, Maui had a brief crisis when the Maui Memorial Hospital lit up, and that was scary as heck, I'm sure, for many there. The good news is it has died down, and I don't have a strong position to defend or detract from Memorial or any other place. It's a tough situation. When you have these outbreaks, which are super infectious to people, we have no natural immunity, you get spread. And the biggest concern I have right now is that the federal government is making some pretty terrible decisions about how they're going to manage the outbreak on the mainland. And right now they've been getting 20,000 cases a day on the mainland, and now that's going to bump up to 50,000 new cases a day, in my estimation, based on their loosening of the restrictions. And that's very dangerous. It's dangerous to the world. It's dangerous to the poor folks that are going to get infected and have a high mortality rate if they have chronic disease, if they're very senior, and so on. But also it affects us. It affects how we will recover and how we'll be able to adjust when we decide it's time to have tourism resume to the state of Hawaii. So those are some big things I think about.
Well, that one is pretty big there. I think we have to be more cautious almost than anyone. We have people coming from all over the world here, and I'm sure unless we have adequate instant or virtually instant testing going on, we're leaving ourselves open to being the one that has a very pure environment, and then one that can't get rid of it.
Yes. Oh. Yeah. Right now, you're so right, Jason. We have the safest environment, right, in the whole country, in the whole world. We are absolutely poised to have that be something that is a calling card for ourselves. Yet, if we have sudden surge of COVID-19 from the mainland, say from New York, where I come from, and a lot of our listeners and people who live in Maui come from, if we had a sudden surge from the mainland U.S. and also concerned about a surge from Japan or Korea or China, it could be quite terrible. So what I believe we're going to have to do is even more than have rapid tests here, I think we're going to have an understanding that we have people get tested within 72 hours of leaving wherever they are. It won't be perfect because there is a window of question. You could be asymptomatic and carrying the virus. You also could, of course, get sick the day after you got tested. But by having a window like that, it will greatly diminish the number of possible cases here in Hawaii. And I think that that's worth doing and necessary. If we do that, I've done the modeling with experts, it really decreases the probability that we're going to have a big nightmare here. And hopefully once the world starts returning to normal, people say, oh, Hawaii really did it well and is a wonderful natural place to visit.
I like that idea. I see these airlines it looks like getting back to normal scheduling 9:30, and I mean that's like 5-6 months from now. What does that mean to our state until then? How do
Well,
you figure that out?
that's an excellent question. So one thing that I've learned, I mean, these pandemics or other crises are very informative. You learn a ton because you have to study all the things that surround them. The economic picture is this: we went from having virtually the lowest unemployment rate in the country to the highest, and so we jumped up 250,000 individuals essentially became unemployed because we so shut down the state. And states all across the country are suffering in this way, but we more than others. Of that 250,000 people, 150,000 or 60% are a part of the Kama'aina economy, our local domestic economy to Hawaii. And the governor just moments ago made a profound announcement that we are opening a lot of things about 36 hours from now. And I'll share that with you in a half second. So 150,000 of the 250,000 people should resume employment quite quickly. That's going to happen. The next 100,000, though, the remaining 100,000 people that lost their jobs are very closely attached to the tourism industry. And that's hotel workers, airlines, certain parts of the economy that rely completely on tourism. That's going to take a little bit more time because it, like you said, is going to take months before we even remotely approximate the tourist numbers that we had, even if we want to. I'm not sure we totally want to come back to those numbers. We certainly want to have a vibrant economy, but this may be the time where we're more mindful of what our carrying capacity is and what we just want as people. Some people, notwithstanding the economic hurt, and I would never minimize that, some people are taking this opportunity to pause and to spend more time with their loved ones and to reflect on maybe having a little less, but a little less economic activity, but a lot more enjoyment and a lot more time to savor Hawaii. And I think that's possible. That may be what the upshot of this whole thing is.
I'm with you. I'm taking the words out of my mouth, which is what I like.
Yes.
When you first were coming on as to be lieutenant governor, and you were talking about housing, is there anything going on there? Because I always am wondering now in this situation. It seems like the people that don't have housing and that are on the lower end are going to be affected by all this. And going forward, we're going to need so much housing. Is there any kind of emergency housing plans going on any of the islands right now?
There is, but the stuff that we're working on, where people are in the most desperate straits, where people have been homeless, completely homeless, or so near to being destitute that they're about to become homeless, is in the works. And we actually have already started to launch some of what we call kauhale, which are small communities around the state. Started one in Waimanalo, another is going up in Kalealoa. Big Island opened one with 32 units. And it's an interesting opportunity to have this crisis because giving people a roof over their heads obviously is necessary to keep them in a sheltered position so that they aren't extremely exposed and in a dense camp where they could infect one another and then other people. So we are doing that right now, but a lot more is going to need to be done. And what I actually think, I'll say something a little bit provocative here on your program, and that is that some businesses, as you know, will not be able to survive. And it's never good to see something go down, but there are some of the older hotel chains and some individuals that may have to walk away from what's been going on, just because when you take away 6 months of significant activity economically, they can't survive. And they may want to sell. And I have already cautioned, in fact, advised our leadership around me to keep our eyes on this because we may be able to have quite a win-win opportunity. Some people may want to bail at a small cost to get out of the market. And those hotels may very well provide an opportunity to do some affordable housing and workforce housing. I hope that that's the case because I would definitely not want to see us, if we had a building out there, step away from it and not provide housing when we have an extreme housing shortage. When my team did a tour of the entire state on homelessness specifically long before the COVID crisis occurred, that was what we heard absolutely everywhere, which is there's a shortage of inventory, there's a shortage of houses, there's a shortage of opportunities. As soon as you look at potentials for several thousand units that might become available, you start wondering, okay, well, maybe that's the opportunity to take, to have the hope, the hotel workers have a place to live and work very near their hotels, to have an opportunity to totally reverse fields. We didn't have those housing opportunities because things were so expensive. Now we may just have an opportunity to have a big surge of them. So it's kind of turning lemons into lemonade in a way, but it's important, if that opportunity arises, to seize it, because boy, this is a time when it's very quiet out there, right? There's no activity, with no tourism, virtually for at least 3 months and maybe 6. We should definitely listen if people want to make us offers to help us solve some of our other problems.
Well, and I always think about, alternative housing solutions and alternative community models that are maybe not in the codes right now, or the codes could be worked. There are so many things I've seen. I always wonder if these kind of times can allow, quote, under an emergency situation, to try different models that might serve as our population is growing and we want to integrate, the farms and the people in a new way. And I always am looking at that, especially if there's not going to be people working, what can we create that becomes work out of an alternative housing thing to set a new model that we can almost here create our own economy locally and serve all our people, not by creating a new currency, but by creating a new, quote, trade system here that would work, yes, including housing. And in a way, I'm just bringing it up because I guess you get so busy trying to work through the system. And at some point, when I speak to people that get in office, it's oftentimes when you get in, you see you don't have quite as much power as you had hoped you would have before you got in. But you're in a very interesting position because your visibility now, I think statewide, your position to, let's say, run for our next governor. Could I say that?
Yeah, I'm definitely, if Jamie thinks it's the right thing for us, I'll definitely run for governor. I have no compulsion about saying that to dear friends. I've been able to see it after a year, and I see, not from a power perspective, which I know is not what you're suggesting,
no,
but from for me, an opportunity to once and for all resolve the homeless and housing question, to once and for all make the case that everyone must have health care, and that's why we were actually in a better position than many as states go to make sure our mortality rate was very low. I mean, we had things in place already because people get coverage no matter what in the state that other states had no clue they could achieve. And so that perspective is not lost on me. And after a year and a half, as you can imagine, studying every nuance of government, I now see exactly what is possible. And there's a lot that's possible in the state of Hawaii. It is tragic to see people lose jobs. And it's very, very tragic to see the fear in people's eyes when they wonder, could they contract a disease that's scary for some, although most people should be fine, I'll tell you. But I also see an exceptional opportunity because this is the first time in decades we've had kind of a clean slate approach. And that means that there will be no excuses if I serve as governor to take on and end homelessness, to restructure how we look at health and mental illness and addiction, to change the economy so that we utilize the university for an energy economy, and change some of our building focus so it's not all hotels, but instead is also actual housing for our people. So these are opportunities that when you had the structures that were just generating money after money after money, people are so reluctant to ever walk away or change that you do run into kind of an immovable object. And I don't feel that the object is so immovable anymore.
Well, it's great. It's like we're given a chance for a global reset here, at least here locally, a reset. What a fantastic opportunity. And hopefully for us, as little pain as possible. Yeah. We're very fortunate. And I personally am very thankful that you're in charge, if you will, because I feel your compassion and your priorities are in order. I watch it in national scene and international, and it scares me. So I'm very thankful that you're here and guiding this ship.
I appreciate it. And I wish there was a little more guiding I could do on some days, but each day I can tell you that behind the scenes, sometimes out in front, I'm able to make comments about whether it's the cruise ships or getting everyone access to testing and screening, or doing the pause on travel here, unless it's done very safely, that we have had a very positive impact on, in spite of some of the fights and scuffles that people perceive about what goes on in politics. And it does. I'm not going to tease. It happens periodically. But my team has been, I hope, thoughtful, and we've prevailed in those opinions. And we're also now, I think, prevailing in some of the businesses that are opening. And let me show you. Your folks will be happy to know that just an hour ago, we announced major business reopening. Some retail stores across the state, floral, auto dealers, nonprofits can now open, real estate, electronics. So we're opening a large swath of business right now. The concerns I have, however, are what do you do when lots of people start showing up possibly infected with COVID? So that's the next phase of what I'm looking at. We're even able to influence other things like getting 12-step programs back up and available to people. I think that's very important in a time where people are feeling a sense of crisis. So this is the kind of things that I'm focused on, and I hope that ends up meaning something in real terms for people.
I hope so too, and I am excited about the fact that in this time that we all have, the ones that don't have jobs, that we can look at creating a new, I want to say new use. A lot of people, I believe, would be happy to be doing different things. You know, we're
yes.
And in the area of healthcare, I don't know how closely you looked. I had sent you some stuff about this. There's a gentleman in Kula named John Beatty who has been working 5 years as a machine that creates HHO, which is hydroxyhydrogen, hydrogen and oxygen. And through communications, I don't know how they seem to come to me, there's a doctor in China that has found that this hydroxyhydrogen helps open up the alveoli in the lungs and helps people that would have been on respirators not need to be there because it stops the inflammation in the lungs and stuff. How does a small business here in these kind of times, because I'm sure there are others that have ideas also, but him even, where do they get the help? I mean, to go and try to get something on an emergency basis, I don't know if that's appropriate now or what, but there's here locally, I mean, I've seen technologies like this, and they're in regenerative agriculture, things that could really progress industry if hydrogen was understood, and they could have health spas that understand the benefits of things that would turn us into, how about having resort spas for health? I mean, it's not unreasonable that Hawaii is already known for health, but to sort of transform a lot of the people that are already working in different industries into serving even a new kind of industry. And our chance to have the people that are growing food here and all kinds of things. I guess you can hear me talking about wanting to help some of the people here that aren't as sophisticated with how to be businessy. Small business, you know, the small core of retired executives or small business center may help some, but it's almost like we need, I want to say, more adventurous capital. You know, I mean, everyone can fit in conforming loans, but in these times when technologies come forward, do you see places for that in our state, in our budget, in our systems? Because that's what I'm really trying. I find technologies that could use a little help. Yeah. And they often say, well, don't go to the state, don't go to the feds. They're never going to help you. It's too much responsibility. Only look for private industry. But I keep thinking in a small state, especially, if we strengthen the core, we're in a position that we don't have to don't diminish the electric company, make them part of the investment team to solve that problem, or in healthcare or things. So some of the main corporate ones could somehow get involved in alternative solutions in a new way that Hawaii would almost create a new model, if you will. And
there are some possibilities there. There are some hard realities are, from state standpoint, it's gonna be tough economically for a year and a half. There's no doubt about that. But Hawaii, as it reinvents itself, there's no reason that instead of propping up certain industries that are already doing well, once tourism is up and doing well, to do innovative healthcare solutions is definitely a place that we could put resource. There's also little doubt to me that if people do decide to find a health incubator, I've seen some very successful people kind of take a jump up during this crisis. Even I believe on Maui, I think Kai Mattis is a physician over there that does some inventions, and they had individual capital invest in them, but it was a big jump for them, and all of a sudden they're creating ventilators that have a new technology, bridge ventilators and certain things. So there are opportunities, and Hawaii could definitely see people working less in structured economy and having more time to work in other areas. And usually the way the state can support that is through the university system, and the university system has to be vibrant to be able to, have a kind of a tolerance for risk, but it should. That's a great place to have risk tolerance.
Well,
I hope that's a big part of the future. Yes.
Well, I was just thinking like there are interns and students there that could well start into some of these industries and add their own twist to it and really be a vibrant, clean, exportable industry. I'm really big for hearing that you're open to that. And I'm sure, like you say, the state is one thing, and they may not have money for a while because they're spending on other stuff, but it may interest private individuals and private groups to get more involved, especially when they've now had a chance to see what happens and what the potential is for things if we don't do things in a more vibrant way now. So
we need to
spur good things.
It's an opportunity. A lot of the rules have been deconstructed, and a lot of the structures themselves have cracked at the edges. So it can be a good time for opportunity. I think that there is going to be an attraction of investment and wealth in Hawaii still. That the fundamentals of Hawaii haven't changed at all or gone away at all. It's still beautiful. It's still a once in a lifetime for many destination. And it is still the safest, healthiest place overall in the United States, just needless to say, and maybe internationally. But now the assumption will not be automatic that if you want to go to Hawaii, you're going there to be a part of tourism, period. End of story. Maybe this is the time. I think renewable energy solutions should find a major niche here in Hawaii. We should have done that all along, but that is a very, very good opportunity for us when we've got ocean power and considerations of certain things like wind and geothermal and how they interact and so on. I mean, these are not without controversy and not without challenges, but also opportunities that almost nobody else has. So I like the ideas. I like the idea of us being an innovative state rather than a place where you're going to do well in business if you run a fancy hotel.
Right, I'm with you. Right now, if you were talking to an audience, you'd be talking to them about COVID-19 mostly. What are the most important things that you'd like the public to know right now, in either in the way they should be or be thinking about this, or what you see coming up? What feels important for you to deliver?
Well, one thing that's very important is that people not despair. We've kept the mortality rate the lowest in the nation, and that's a very good thing. So people should know they've succeeded in a way that we haven't often seen us come together as one ohana, which is very, very good. Two, we shouldn't get cocky, because you can see this thing explode quite quickly in a lot of different states and countries. So please, during the next couple months, continue to practice the appropriate social distancing and mask wearing as needed if you're going to be within 6 feet of anybody. Even though our our viral loads are very low. I just don't want to see an outbreak that's unnecessary. So please be careful. We're going to continuously and rapidly restore people's freedoms to be outside, which I think is totally safe, and to be at the beaches, which I also think is totally safe. Do a little social distancing, but if you're there with your own family cohort or friends that are all negative, you're not running an extra risk. So those are the things that will be restored, but don't get too cocky, and prepare for a fairly rapid renewal of our old ways in the state for businesses. That will happen, although everything will be quiet, because if you run a furniture company, it's going to take a little time before people have money to buy furniture. And if you run a restaurant and you get open, we're not going to have tourists there, so your volume will be lower. But prepare for what will probably be a very large pent-up demand for Hawaii. I can easily envision wealthy individuals from all across the world wanting to come here without hesitation, because we've done so well in keeping this a very healthy, clean, safe state. Those are some of the things I would tell people. I would tell them that our healthcare system is well prepared for them, notwithstanding some of the scares we had locally on our island on Maui. We have only used about between 11 and 13% of our ventilators at any given time, which means we, unlike anybody else, had more than enough. We are planning, at least I am, with top people at all times, a strategy to keep us from getting a surge, which is important, which again will bode well for our future. And then finally, don't shy away from new opportunities and new ideas. I really hope that what I thought was going to happen in 2000 when we had the millennium changing. I thought we were going to get a new world. There was a mentality there that seemed to move the spirit towards new opportunity. And then 9/11 happened, and it just wasn't. We became a concerned security state with our eyes on terrorism. So I think now 2020 is when the millennium is really going to begin, is my expectation. And that's mostly because people's existential consideration has been brought to the fore. And we now have looked at ourselves in the context of we could have been wiped out, and each and every one of us was equally vulnerable. And I think that will change our priorities greatly. And that means that Hawaii has an opportunity to, instead of fighting over the telescope, uniting over what we should do together for the next decade. And instead of worrying about putting together another plan for 5,000 visitors, maybe it's putting together a plan that's better for our education system and what's good for us here at home. So I think priorities are shifting already very quickly, and I'm excited about that. So I hope people take that to heart and don't come from a place of fear as this COVID crisis diminishes. Look at this as the new opportunity to start Hawaii the way you wanted it all along.
Well, I can tell you from a personal point of view, seeing you in charge and listening to you gives me a level of confidence that I hope all of our viewers share. And if there's anything we can do to be service to you and as an outlet for you to be able to communicate to people here in Maui, I'm always open here to you. Anything otherwise that you'd like to say to our group?
Well, just thank you, everyone, for your sacrifice. I know it has been extreme. It has really been extraordinary to see people willing to sacrifice for the good of many. And that's really what humanity was supposed to be about. So just a brief thank you here as we head towards Mother's Day and the summer as we start to return to some normalcy. Just thank you. Thank you from me and Jamie and Sam and Maya. We appreciate what you've done. And I hope that I'm able to reward you 10 times over with good plans and kind of openness as we go forward, because it definitely is a new era for Hawaii and probably for all of our country, but I'm going to focus on Hawaii.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green. It's a pleasure having you here on the show, and I look forward to working with you, not only here at this, but on different projects as we go along and we're past this hump. Thank you for your service. Thank you deeply.
Super. It was my pleasure.
Aloha, and everyone out there, we're going to take a station break, and we'll be back. Dr. Green, thank you again. Aloha.
Aloha.